again, it is my good fortune to present the first workshop, which will be about the H1B visas. And some of you, I'm sure, I hope most of you are very familiar with H1B visas by this time. But if not, we're going to talk about some basics. I don't want anyone to go to sleep because I will begin with the foundation. We'll talk a little bit about the very most simple elements of H1B visas, but then we'll talk about something, the complex cases and the RFEs, requests for evidence, that will come, and strategies that you can use in responding or preparing for the complex request for evidence situation. All right. So we'll switch to the presentation if you don't mind. Great. All right. Is there a... Excellent. First slide, please. So as I'm, again, hopeful everyone should be knowing, there's an annual quota for H-1B visas. The current quota allows for 65,000 new H-1B visas for those that do not hold an advanced degree from a U.S. university, and 20,000 additional for those who do have a master's degree from U.S. university. The earliest date possible to file for H-1B visa will be April 1st, which in the United States is April Fool's Day. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's when everyone plays a practical joke on each other. It's kind of a lot of fun, actually, but just a coincidence, I think, that these align on the same calendar day. But if the visa is approved, the start date, the earliest date will be October 1st for the new H-1B worker, and that's the beginning of the United States federal fiscal year. Okay, so United States will be cheering and shouting about the new year on October 1st. Actually, nobody does, and nobody really notices except the H-1B people. When someone already has an H-1B visa and they move to a new company, they can begin working upon the filing of the new H-1B visa. So for all of you, that is such an important part of the timing aspect of bringing on the new talent. Okay? People need to maintain their valid immigration status when they want to make a transfer. So if they've lost their previous employment and now they want to move to a new employer, they will have to document that they have established their status and kept their employment up to the time when you would be filing the new H-1B transfer. And if they don't, then that's when you come talk to your immigration attorney and figure out what you're going to do, and many of you probably know what to do in those kinds of cases. But we'll go a little deeper here into the next slides. Thanks. Great. There's a 6-year limit established for H-1B workers that you should not work more than 6 years under H-1B. Back in the year 2000, around that time, there was a provision created to allow the workers to stay in the U.S. beyond the 6-year limit, as long as they had a green card process that had been started and was pending at least 1 year or more, or if that person had an approved I-140, which is the second stage of the green card process, which could come before 1 year. Hopefully it does. Okay. Another thing that comes is the spouse of an H-1B worker is known as a H-4 visa holder. And that person may have work authorization in some cases, as a new provision was released a couple of years ago that allows the spouse to work after the principal or the H-1B holder has reached the point where I-140 has been approved. So these are huge benefits for many of the Indian H-1B workers that are waiting so long for their green card process to be approved, waiting in the U.S. while their spouse previously had to sit and wait and not have a job and maybe just study or do other things, not employment. But now they can find employment, and it's a wonderful benefit. Next slide. Oh, terrific. Great. So now, again, it's about to get exciting, so don't lose hope. We're going to talk about some more relevant issues, but just building the foundation at this point. So H-1B visas are for people who are specialty workers or who hold a specialty occupation. A specialty occupation means that you need a bachelor's degree in a specific field. Not just any bachelor's degree or general education, but the job requires that the bachelor's degree be focused in a particular area. Also, it requires that the candidate have that degree. Not just the job requires, but of course, the candidate is qualified. Sometimes you find that an employee will not have, or a candidate will not have a degree. Sometimes they may have less than 4-year degree. There are ways around that. Sometimes it could be an unrelated degree, like they have a degree in history and you're trying to help them become a systems analyst or something like that. They could be super qualified but not have the right degree. When that happens, if they have experience in the area of specialty occupation, there can be experience in lieu of education. 3 years of experience will equal 1 year of education that is lacking towards the bachelor's degree requirement. And in those cases, you will find that there are evaluators, there are professors in the United States that will make a determination that is acceptable by U.S. immigration, that the person with their experience and some education, and in some cases absolutely zero education, which you don't see too often, but it can be done, that they qualify as if they had a bachelor's degree of 4 years in the specialty because of their experience. An H-1B visa is location specific. So when you file the H-1B, it will mention where the worker will be situated, where they will function every day. When that happens and they are transferred to new location, there's a set of rules that you need to look at in order to decide if the transfer is going to require an amended H-1B petition. This has all become more important in the last 2 years since there was a decision called SIMEO from the U.S. Immigration Appeals Office that has indicated that an H-1B amendment needs to be filed when, in certain cases, the employee has been transferred and it's not one of the exceptions that is mentioned here on the slide. For example, training or conference attendance, things like that for the employee's enrichment does not require an amendment to be filed. Maybe a short-term assignment, some are qualified up to 30, up to even 60 days on a short-term assignment with certain exceptions. They will not need an amended H-1B. And of course, if the person is being transferred somewhere within commuting distance of the original location that was indicated on the H-1B petition, then an amendment is not required either. So these are good exceptions. And I'm thinking, what is an acceptable commuting distance for Bangalore here? Like 2 blocks, right? Because in US it could be 30 or 50 miles, you'll make it in an hour. Here I'm thinking an hour is like a kilometer maybe, right? It just takes so long to go everywhere. And last night I just sat for 2 hours going from one side of Bangalore to the other, and I just was so impressed with all of you. Everybody here is so patient. Everybody here is so kind to each other. I think in the United States, if we had that traffic, people would be fighting all the time. And I don't see people fighting in the street so much. Maybe you do, I don't see it. It looks like everyone's just having another day, another pleasant day in traffic. One of the other important things that we have with H-1B is called prevailing wage. It means that the worker should be paid a normal wage, an average wage, for the location and the skill level where they will be working, okay? There's also something called actual wage, which means that the employee should be paid something similar to all the other workers, as much or more than the other people who are working in the same location of the company, doing the same level of work. These are things that we could talk, all of these, this subject alone could be an hour. We don't have time, so we're just going to briefly touch them. When you file the H-1B visa, there will be something called a public access file. The public access file is where you will find the information about the prevailing wage, the actual wage. It will talk about the promises that the employer is going to make to the H-1B worker, that there will be benefits offered, that they will not treat the worker unfairly and lock him or her out of the office or put them, if they strike, they will not abuse them or fire them, things like that. So there's a lot of promises the employer makes, including sending the employee home if they're terminated. When they leave their employment, the H-1B worker should be given airline ticket home to their original place of origin. So just when you think this is easy, right? This doesn't sound so complicated. You filed your H1B, everything's going along so nicely, and you get a request for evidence, right? You've seen them. Sometimes we really dread these. When we get one and it's an important worker for our client, we feel so worried that something will be going wrong. But there's many things to consider, and that's what we want to do today, is talk about some of the strategies that you might think about as you work with your law firms, or as you do these yourself, because I understand many of the companies here will be doing the actual paperwork and preparing them. So one of the things that you consider in preparing your H-1B visa petition before you even file it is how much documentation you want to include. So one theory says you should over-document and provide all the information possible, everything that is conceivable, and you'll send a huge immigration petition for the H-1B worker. That has some advantages because hopefully they don't give you an RFE, right? They'll see everything is there. But if you know anything about USCIS, you may send them everything, and guess what? They send you an RFE anyway, right? And if they send you the RFE after you give them everything, what else are you going to give them? You've given it. It's there. And so sometimes you'll just be giving them again the thing that you already gave. And doing the work on the front end was so much, and they're asking you for it again, it almost feels like a waste of time. So that's one of the things that you should consider. It's a high cost to prepare the cases that way. It takes so much of time and effort, and you have nothing left to show if they ask you for more evidence. On the other hand, you have under-documentation or lower documentation, where you will give them the necessities, you'll give them everything that should be required to get the case approved, not doing so much of work, not overextending yourselves and giving the immigration service a huge petition. But in those cases, again, you come across the possibility that immigration will ask for more because they didn't see everything. So you have to kind of walk a tightrope. Like in a circus, you have to decide which side are you going to balance more. On the side of giving much more information or less, the amount of effort required and the cost and benefit will be there. Okay? I usually, personally, I say you want to strike a balance. I give immigration the amount required, not necessarily the least amount, but without putting so much of effort so that when they do ask for RFE, we can come back and give them more. And that's kind of the balance that we've chosen in our practice most of the time. But some clients, they want cases to be fully documented, and we'll do it that way. Or they even say, hey, we just need to get this filed so quickly because the worker needs to start tomorrow, and we will file it with minimal documentation. Again, you make those decisions based on the requirements in the individual cases. As you've probably seen, if you've ever looked at an RFE or request for evidence, some are very simple. Some will just say, hey, you forgot to check a box. We need you to do that. Or you didn't send us a particular document. We didn't find the diploma. That's very nice. They take about 5 minutes to respond. But some will be very complex, and these are the ones we want to talk about a little bit more right now. Complex RFEs, people. I'd say the more complex RFEs that I see on a daily basis, the ones that require the most amount of effort, are the RFEs surrounding technology consulting companies, also software development companies, and situations that involve remote workers. And I think, given your demographic here, probably most are in this category, if not all, right? Some of you will be product companies, but even in your product companies, you'll have people going out consulting and setting up the products and doing those things, and these are the people that call out the complex RFEs. One of the issues that comes up in a complex RFE is availability of work, okay? Why do they care about availability of work with immigration? You're paying the person, right? They're getting some money. Well, in the past, and probably even in the present, some of the employers will bring the H-1B worker without a job to do. They just bring them on a promise saying, we will bring you, you'll have something to do, we will pay you. But what was found is that some were coming and they weren't having a job to do. They would come to the United States, the employer would say, well, we actually don't have a project for you right now, you should sit on a bench. And they wouldn't even get paid. And they would be in the United States where it's expensive to live and no money would be coming. Immigration would get complaints about this, and sometimes the United States workers would complain about this. Everybody was upset about this, and immigration did not like this. And so immigration wants to make sure that the company has actual work available to the employee when they arrive and throughout the entire period of the H-1B that has been requested. Normally that will be 3 years. And so the employer should provide an itinerary or some kind of schedule that will show what the worker will be doing, where they will be doing it, and that there are actual clients to be serving or there is work to do during the entire H-1B. They also want to make sure that the employee will be paid the entire time, as that's an important factor. So they don't allow what we call benching, right, where you put the person on a bench, you don't pay them, you don't do anything, they sit at home in their pajamas. They should be actively working. So in order to prove that your company is not benching the workers, in order to prove that you have the work available to the H-1B employee or to the candidate, you need to show evidence that there will be work there. And the key components for that one are typically the master service agreements or MSAs that you will have with your clients where the person will be working, where the H-1B worker will go. There could be a statement of work or a work order, a job order, something like that that will show that the employee has been assigned to that location under the master service agreement. And then finally, a nice piece, probably one of the better things that you can provide to U.S. immigration, is a letter from the end client that acknowledges the presence of that worker or that that person will be coming to fulfill some sort of activities under the master service agreement that has been signed. So everything looks really good if you have these pieces of documentation, but sometimes you don't. For some reason, some of your clients will be unwilling or they won't be so flexible in providing you a letter that explains that the worker is there or will be there. They don't want to do this. Their attorneys start getting paranoid about why we would be providing a letter to immigration. What are we doing this? How come you cannot do it on your own? Why do you need us to sign anything else? We signed your master service agreement. That's all we will do. And that's when it gets difficult, okay? Another thing that will happen is none of these documents will mention the name of the employee. There will be a statement of work. There will be the master service agreement. There will be other documents, but it won't be mentioning the individual H-1B candidate. So now it becomes complex. What do we do in those situations? Generally, we will provide some type of secondary evidence to show that the worker will be functioning in the job and that will be active during the full period of the requested H-1B. These will be things where the worker could be doing something in-house. Many times the master service agreement may be only for 1 year, but immigration, USCIS wants to know, what about the other 2 years you've requested? And so you will show them master service agreement, maybe even a letter from the client, but you have to document the subsequent 2 years. And this could be an in-house assignment where they will work maybe on a project for the company, working on a proprietary system or something internal to the company where they need that resource. Another one could be that the employer will show they have a lease and photos of the company where the person will work because immigration thinks they could be sitting home on their couch doing nothing, on a bench somewhere. But if you show them that they have a cubicle, that there's a place actually for them to sit, and that there are other workers and everybody is coming to that office for their job, this is helpful sometimes. You'll see that the business license could be helpful because, again, the employer has to show they're functioning every day in a business, that people go there, and the H-1B worker will come there too. Sometimes the company will show their bank statements to show activity and the deposits from the customers, from the clients, the end client that is paying for all of the service that the H-1B worker will do. If they see nice, healthy deposits coming into your company bank account, they will see that there is real work happening, that there are people paying for it, and that there's activity there. The same thing can be shown from taxes. The tax documents will show that the company is declaring so much of income and that there's business activity and turnover, that everything is coming along. There will be payroll records. Lots of H-1B workers are under the payroll, and non-H-1B workers are coming under the payroll. So when USCIS will see that so many people are being paid, that it's likely one more could be there and be on the payroll under H-1B. In our office, we ask our clients to come with additional master service agreements. So not only the one that will be for the worker specifically, but others that exist where the worker could be assigned after the initial service agreement has been concluded, or if it is terminated for some reason. There will be multiple agreements with other end customers that we would show. And this is, again, to show how much work is available, that the company is having so much of work that it's very easy for immigration to believe that this person could be assigned to a different project without any